Captain Jake Morrison stared at the massive alien ship through the viewing port of the USS Liberty. The vessel looked like nothing he had ever seen before. It was smooth and curved like a giant silver teardrop floating in space. Strange lights pulsed along its surface in patterns that hurt his eyes to watch. The ship was at least 10 times larger than his own vessel, and it moved without any visible engines or exhaust trails. 3 months had passed since humanity first detected the alien signals. The messages came in mathematical sequences that took Earth's best scientists weeks to decode. When they finally understood the meaning, the news spread across every nation on the planet. Humanity was not alone in the universe. An advanced civilization called the Galactic Dominion wanted to meet with Earth's representatives. Jake had been chosen to lead the first diplomatic mission to alien space. He was a career military officer with 20 years of experience commanding deep space exploration vessels. His crew of 30 included the best scientists, diplomats, and military personnel that Earth could provide. Lieutenant Amy Carter served as the mission's technology specialist. She was young, but brilliant, with degrees in physics and engineering, from the top universities on Earth. The journey to the meeting point had taken 2 months using humanity's fastest ship. The USS Liberty was powered by nuclear fusion engines and could reach nearly 10% of light speed. Jake thought it was an impressive achievement for human technology. That opinion was about to change. A voice crackled over the communication system. The translator device that Earth scientists had built converted the alien sounds into English words. Human vessel USS Liberty, you are cleared to dock with the diplomatic station. Follow the guidance beacons to Docking Bay 7. Jake watched as small lights appeared in space, forming a path toward the alien ship. His pilot, Commander Lisa Baker, followed the lights with careful precision. As they got closer, Jake could see that what he thought was one ship was actually a space station the size of a small city. Hundreds of smaller vessels moved around it like insects around a hive. The docking process was smooth and automatic. Mechanical arms extended from the station and gently pulled the Liberty into a sealed bay. Through the viewing port, Jake saw alien beings waiting for them. They were tall and reptilian, with scales that shifted color in the light. Their eyes were large and intelligent, and they wore elaborate robes that seemed to float around their bodies. Jake and his team put on their best diplomatic uniforms and gathered their presentation materials. Amy carried a portable holographic projector that would display examples of human technology. The team had practiced their presentation dozens of times during the long journey to this meeting. The airlock opened with a soft hiss. Jake stepped onto the alien station and felt artificial gravity pull him down. The air smelled strange, like ozone after a lightning storm. The lead alien stepped forward and spoke in a voice that sounded like gravel grinding together. Welcome, humans, to Zarian Prime Station. I am Admiral Kexvar of the Galactic Dominion Fleet. We are curious to learn about your species and your capabilities. Jake activated his translator and replied, Thank you for this opportunity, Admiral. I am Captain Jake Morrison, representing the United Earth Government. We are honored to meet with your civilization. Kexvar's scales shifted to a darker color, which Jake hoped was not a bad sign. The alien gestured for them to follow him through corridors that seemed to bend and twist in impossible ways. The walls glowed with soft light that had no visible source. Other alien beings moved past them, some floating in the air without any obvious means of support. They entered a large chamber filled with holographic displays showing star maps and fleet movements. Dozens of alien officers worked at control stations that responded to thought rather than touch. Jake tried not to stare, but everything he saw was beyond human understanding. Admiral Kexavar took his position at the center of the chamber. "Please, show us what humanity has achieved. We are most interested in your military and technological capabilities." Amy activated her holographic projector and began the presentation. Three-dimensional images appeared in the air, showing human, spacecraft, weapons, and industrial facilities. She explained how human ships used chemical rockets and nuclear engines for propulsion. She described their kinetic weapons that fired metal projectiles at high speed. She showed their basic energy shields and computer systems. As Amy continued her presentation, Jake noticed that the alien officers were making strange sounds. At first, he thought they were asking questions or making comments. Then he realized they were laughing. The sounds grew louder as Amy showed more human technology. By the time she finished, the entire chamber was filled with alien laughter. Admiral Kexavar raised one clawed hand, and the laughter stopped. His scales had shifted to what looked like an amused yellow color. "Captain Morrison, we thank you for this entertaining presentation. Your species has achieved remarkable things for such a primitive civilization." Jake felt his face grow hot with anger, but he kept his voice steady. "Primitive, Admiral? Humanity has built cities on dozens of worlds and developed technology that allows us to travel between the stars." "Yes, yes," Kexavar replied, his scales flickering with what might have been condescension. "Your achievements are impressive for mammals who have barely learned to leave their birth world. Your kinetic weapons are particularly amusing. We used similar tools when our species was still building mud huts." Another alien officer stepped forward. This one wore robes marked with symbols of rank. "Admiral, perhaps we should show them what real technology looks like." The chamber's holographic displays changed to show Dominion military forces. Jake watched in amazement as ships that dwarfed Earth's largest vessels moved through space without any visible means of propulsion. Weapons that looked like controlled stars destroyed entire moons with single shots. Defensive barriers turned away attacks that should have vaporized any material known to human science. "Our ships are powered by controlled antimatter reactions," Kexavar explained. "Our weapons draw energy directly from subspace. Our hulls are constructed from matter that exists partially in other dimensions. We have conquered 1,000 worlds and rule over 50 different species," Amy whispered to Jake. "Their technology is centuries ahead of ours, maybe thousands of years." Kexavar's hearing was apparently better than human normal. "Thousands is correct, young human. The Galactic Dominion has been spacefaring for longer than your species has existed. We have perfected warfare to an art form." The Admiral gestured, and the displays changed again. This time they showed Earth from space, with detailed scans of human cities and military installations. "We have been observing your world since we detected your first radio signals. Your defenses are charming in their simplicity." Jake's blood ran cold as he realized the implications. "You've been watching us without our knowledge?" "Of course. We study all primitive species before making contact. It helps us determine the best approach for integration into the Dominion." "Integration?" Kexavar's scales shifted to a darker, more serious color. "Captain Morrison, humanity now faces a choice. You can join the Galactic Dominion as a tributary species. You will provide raw materials and labor for our empire. In return, we will protect you from other threats and allow you to continue existing. And if we refuse, The Admiral's large eyes focused directly on Jake with predatory intensity. "Then, we will take your world by force. Your primitive weapons cannot harm our ships. Your basic shields cannot stop our weapons. The conquest would be over in days, perhaps hours." Jake felt the weight of humanity's future pressing down on his shoulders. "How long do we have to decide?" "1 standard galactic year. That should give your leaders time to understand the reality of your situation." Kexvar turned away, clearly considering the meeting over. "Do not mistake our offer for weakness, Captain. We are being generous because we find your species mildly entertaining. That patience has limits." The journey back to Earth passed in grim silence. Jake stared out at the stars and wondered if humanity had any chance of survival against such overwhelming power. The Dominion's technology made human achievements look like stone tools compared to laser weapons. Amy spent the return trip analyzing every scan and recording they had made of alien technology. Her reports made depressing reading. The Dominion possessed capabilities that violated everything humans thought they knew about physics. Their casual display of power suggested they could destroy Earth's entire space fleet without significant effort. When the USS Liberty finally reached Earth orbit, Jake prepared to deliver news that would change humanity forever. In 1 year, they would face an enemy that considered them barely more advanced than animals. The choice was submission or extinction, and neither option offered much hope for the future of the human race. The atmosphere in the assembly hall changed completely after Princess Veloth's apology. The musical whispers of the Zephyrian audience took on different tones as they processed what they had witnessed. The humans were no longer objects of amusement, but beings who deserved serious consideration and perhaps a healthy degree of caution. Princess Veloth gestured for her people to remain seated while she continued speaking with the human delegation. "I find myself curious about many things I had not considered before," she said to Dr. Carter. "Your home world, for instance. You said the gravity is 3 times stronger than ours." Dr. Carter nodded. "Earth has a gravity of approximately 9.8 meters per second squared. Your world appears to have roughly 3.2. The difference may not sound dramatic, but it affects every aspect of how life develops." "And you have predators," continued the princess. "Creatures that hunt other creatures." "Many different kinds," confirmed Dr. Carter. "Some larger than humans, some smaller, but all requiring different survival strategies. Humans succeeded not because we were the strongest or fastest, but because we learned to work together and use tools." Captain Morrison stepped forward. "Your Highness, if I may ask, how does your species handle conflict or disagreement? Do you have wars or violence?" Princess Veloth looked puzzled by the question. "Wars? You mean organized fighting between groups of people? Why would anyone do such a thing? If there is disagreement, we discuss it until we find a solution that works for everyone." "And if discussion fails?" asked Commander Brooks. "It never fails," replied the princess with confidence. "There is always a solution that benefits everyone if you look hard enough. Violence is wasteful and destructive. It accomplishes nothing useful." The humans exchanged glances. Ambassador Torres chose her words carefully. "Your Highness Human, history includes many conflicts and wars. We have learned to solve problems through cooperation, but it took us a long time to develop those skills. Our evolution included competition for resources and territory." "How terrible," said Princess Veloth with genuine sympathy. "Your species had to fight to survive. That explains so much about your physical development and your technology." Dr. Carter pulled out her datapad and showed the princess some images of Earth. These are pictures of our home world. As you can see, it has many different environments. Humans spread across all of them, learning to survive in conditions ranging from frozen wastelands to burning deserts. Princess Veloth studied the images with fascination. So many different climates and terrains. Your people had to adapt to all of these. That is why human technology tends to be robust and versatile, explained Captain Morrison. We never knew what conditions we might encounter, so we built our equipment to handle almost anything. The princess walked over to examine the human uniforms and equipment more closely. Now that she understood the context, everything looked different. The thick fabric was not crude, but practical for harsh environments. The heavy construction of their tools was not primitive, but designed for reliability under extreme conditions. Your translation devices, she said, pointing to the small units each human wore. They are built like armor, Ambassador Torres smiled. They have to survive being dropped, kicked, stepped on, and exposed to everything from Arctic cold to tropical heat. Delicate equipment would not last long in human hands. And your ship? Continued the princess. It is heavily armored and reinforced. Our ships carry thousands of people across distances that might take years to travel, said Captain Morrison. They need to protect their passengers from radiation, cosmic debris, gravitational stress, and mechanical failure. We cannot simply step between energy currents like your vessels do. Princess Veloth nodded thoughtfully. So when I called your ships crude, what I was really seeing was engineering designed for challenges my people have never faced. Exactly, confirmed Dr. Carter. Different problems require different solutions. Your gravity manipulation technology is elegant because it works perfectly in your environment. Our brute force approach is necessary because of the conditions we face. The princess turned to address her assembled court. Dr. Carter moved with careful, deliberate steps toward Princess Veloth. The entire assembly hall watched in complete silence as the human scientist approached the alien royal. The princess stood perfectly still, but her crystalline skin was glowing, brighter with what might have been nervousness or excitement. Your Highness, said Dr. Carter quietly, I want you to remain completely relaxed. Do not try to help or resist. Simply allow me to demonstrate the strength difference between our species. Princess Veloth nodded. Her silver eyes were fixed on the human woman with intense curiosity. I understand, Doctor. Proceed with your demonstration. Dr. Carter reached out with her right hand and placed it gently but firmly on the princess's waist, just below her ribs. The alien royal was tall and elegant, but up close, her delicate build was even more apparent. Her waist was narrow and felt fragile under the scientist's careful grip. Ready? Asked Dr. Carter. Ready, replied the princess, though her voice was slightly higher than usual. What happened next took less than 2 seconds, but it changed everything. Dr. Carter simply lifted. Princess Veloth rose into the air as smoothly as if she were floating on one of her own gravity platforms. But she was not floating. She was being held aloft by a single human hand with no visible effort from the woman supporting her. The 7-foot-tall alien royal dangled in the air like a child being picked up by a parent. The silence in the hall was absolute. Dr. Carter held the princess at shoulder height, with her arm barely flexed. Her breathing was normal, and her stance was relaxed. She showed no signs of strain or effort, despite supporting the full weight of another sentient being with one hand. Princess Veloth stared down at the human holding her with an expression of complete shock. Her royal composure had vanished entirely. Her mouth was open and her silver eyes were wide with disbelief. She tried to speak, but no sound came out. The assembled Zephyrians sat frozen on their floating platforms. The musical chatter and gentle laughter that had filled the hall for days was replaced by stunned silence. Many of them were leaning forward as if they could not believe what they were seeing. Dr. Carter held the position for several long seconds, allowing everyone in the hall to fully absorb what was happening. Then she slowly and carefully lowered Princess Veloth back to the ground with the same gentle precision she might use when handling laboratory equipment. The princess's feet touched the floor, but she continued to stare at Dr. Carter. Her legs seemed unsteady, and she took a small step backward. "In human terms, Your Highness," said Dr. Carter in her calm, scientific voice, "you weigh approximately the same as a human toddler. What you have just experienced is the strength that evolved in a species adapted to survive on a world with 3 times the gravity of yours." Princess Veloth opened her mouth and closed it again without speaking. She looked at her own hands as if she had never seen them before, then looked back at the human scientist. "Our crude muscle structure, as you called it," continued Dr. Carter, "developed to help us survive alongside predators that could crush your entire palace guard. Our bulky frames evolved to carry heavy loads across continents under crushing gravity that would flatten any Zephyrian who attempted to land on our world." The princess finally found her voice. "You lifted me," she whispered. "You lifted me like I weigh nothing at all." "Not like you weigh nothing," corrected Dr. Carter gently. "Like you weigh 30 pounds, which to a human is very light indeed." "Commander." Brooks stepped forward. His expression was carefully neutral, but his voice carried new authority. "Your Highness, every human in this room could lift you just as easily as Dr. Carter did. What you experienced is not exceptional human strength. It is normal human capability applied to Zephyrian physiology. The implications hit the assembled aliens like a physical blow. Whispers began to spread through the crowd as they realized what they had just witnessed. The humans they had been mocking for days were beings who could physically handle any Zephyrian like a piece of delicate equipment. Captain Jake Morrison spoke for the first time since entering the hall. His voice was diplomatic, but firm. "Your Highness, we have been restraining our physical capabilities since arriving at your station. We move carefully to avoid damaging your architecture. We handle your technology gently to avoid breaking it accidentally. We have been treating your entire civilization with the same care Dr. Carter just showed you." Princess Veloth looked around the hall at her people. The Zephyrians, who had been laughing at human primitiveness, now stared at the 4 aliens standing calmly on their main floor, aliens who could apparently pick up any of them without effort. "The cargo ships you mocked," continued Captain Morrison, "are built to carry supplies for thousands of humans across interstellar distances. The massive engines you called crude are designed to accelerate loads that would be incomprehensible to a species accustomed to floating cities." Ambassador Torres stepped forward with her diplomatic smile back in place. "Your Highness, humanity has learned to solve problems through cooperation and mutual support. We developed technology to help us work together rather than individually. When you cannot manipulate gravity directly, you learn to build vessels that can carry entire communities to safety." Dr. Carter gestured toward the floating cities visible through the crystal walls. "Your achievements are remarkable and beautiful. You learn to work with forces we are only beginning to understand. But our achievements are equally valid. We learned to work with massive forces and harsh conditions that would destroy lighter species." Princess Veloth slowly walked in a circle around Dr. Carter, studying the human scientist from every angle. "You could have hurt me," she said quietly. "Yes," admitted Dr. Carter, "very easily. Which is why we have been so careful since arriving here. All of you, continued the princess. Any of you could simply reach out and... She did not finish the sentence. Commander Brooks nodded grimly. Any human could lift any Zephyrian, Your Highness, but we came here seeking friendship and trade agreements. Violence never entered our minds. The princess stopped walking and faced the humans directly. I have been calling you primitive, she said. You have, agreed Ambassador Torres. But we understand why. Our species developed very different solutions to the challenges of survival and civilization. What looks crude to you is actually the result of adapting to conditions that would be lethal to your people. Princess Veloth was quiet for a long moment. The hall remained silent as she processed everything she had learned. Her courtiers watched, nervously, as their leader tried to adjust her understanding of the beings they had been mocking. Your ships, she said finally, are not crude. They are built for conditions we cannot imagine. That is correct, said Captain Morrison. Your strength is not primitive. It is adapted for a hostile environment. Also correct. And your technology is not backwards. It is designed to help physically powerful beings work together safely. Ambassador Torres smiled. Now you begin to understand, Your Highness. Princess Veloth looked at each human in turn. I owe you an apology, she said formally. I have been judging your species by standards that do not apply to your evolutionary background. I have been rude and condescending to guests who have shown nothing but restraint and diplomacy. The musical whispers from the Zephyrian audience grew louder as they realized their princess was acknowledging her mistake. Apology accepted, Your Highness, said Ambassador Torres graciously. Perhaps we can start over with better understanding on both sides. Princess Veloth nodded slowly. Yes, I think that would be wise. And perhaps we can discuss how our very different capabilities might complement each other. Dr. Carter smiled. Now that sounds like the beginning of a real partnership. The main assembly hall of the Zephyrian station was the most beautiful room the humans had ever seen. The ceiling stretched up into darkness, while walls of living crystal pulsed with soft rainbow colors. Floating platforms provided seating for hundreds of Zephyrians who had come to watch the demonstration. Princess Veloth stood on the central platform wearing robes that sparkled like captured starlight. Her crown floated above her head, casting prismatic patterns across her crystalline skin. She looked like a figure from a fairy tale, but her smile held the sharp edge of someone expecting to be greatly entertained. Welcome, friends, and honored guests, she announced in her musical voice. Today we have the rare privilege of witnessing a demonstration of primitive physical capability. Our human visitors have promised to show us the advantages of their crude evolutionary development. The assembled Zephyrians laughed like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. They floated on their platforms with perfect grace, looking down at the humans, standing on the main floor. Everything about their posture suggested they were settling in to watch an amusing show. Jake stood with his team at the center of the hall, feeling very aware of how different they looked from everyone else. The humans were shorter and broader than the elegant aliens surrounding them. Their uniforms seemed crude and practical compared to the flowing artistic garments of the Zephyrians. Dr. Carter had spent the night reviewing everything she knew about Zephyrian physiology. The aliens were tall and graceful, but their bones were hollow like a bird's. Their muscle density was extremely low, adapted for a world where gravity barely existed. According to her calculations, an average Zephyrian weighed about as much as a human child despite being much taller. Dr. Carter called Princess Veleth from her platform. You were the one who suggested this demonstration. Perhaps you would care to explain what we are about to witness. Dr. Carter stepped forward and looked up at the princess. Your Highness, you have made many observations about human physical development over the past few days. You have noted our density, our muscle structure, and our adaptation to gravity. I thought it might be educational to demonstrate exactly what those adaptations mean in practical terms. How wonderfully scientific, laughed the princess. And what sort of demonstration did you have in mind? Will you be lifting heavy objects, perhaps breaking things with your bare hands? I confess I am quite curious to see primitive strength in action. The Zephyrian audience tittered with anticipation. Some of them were taking recordings of the event to share with friends who could not attend. This was clearly the most exciting thing to happen on the station in a long time. Ambassador Torres stepped forward with her diplomatic smile firmly in place. Your Highness, we want to ensure that any demonstration is conducted safely for all participants. Perhaps we could begin with something simple. Oh, please, said Princess Veleth, waving one graceful hand. We are perfectly safe up here on our platforms, and I am sure your primitive companions know how to control their crude strength. After all, even ancient beasts of burden can be trained not to break their equipment. More musical laughter rippled through the audience. Commander Brooks looked like he was grinding his teeth, but he kept his expression neutral. Dr. Carter looked up at the princess floating on her platform. Actually, Your Highness, I was thinking of something more interactive. You have spent considerable time studying human physiology from a distance. Perhaps you would like a more direct experience of what our evolutionary adaptations actually mean. Princess Veleth's eyes lit up with interest. Direct experience. How intriguingly primitive. What exactly are you proposing, Doctor? Simply this, said Dr. Carter. You have commented repeatedly on our strength and density. You have theorized about our evolutionary background and our crude physical development. I am offering to demonstrate exactly what those characteristics mean by showing you the difference between Zephyrian and human capabilities. The princess considered this with obvious delight. A comparison demonstration? How perfectly scientific. And what form would this comparison take? Dr. Carter smiled. I would like to demonstrate the practical difference between a species that evolved in low gravity and one that evolved in high gravity. With your permission, I would show the assembled audience exactly what human strength means when applied to Zephyrian physiology. The hall fell silent. Princess Veleth looked down at the human scientist with growing curiosity. You want to demonstrate human strength by applying it to me personally. With appropriate safety measures and your full consent, confirmed Dr. Carter. I believe it would be educational for everyone present. The princess laughed like crystal. Bells. How delightfully bold. Very well, Doctor. I accept your proposal. Show us all what your primitive strength can accomplish. Jake felt the cold knot in his stomach grow larger. Dr. Carter, are you sure about this? Quite sure, Captain, she replied without taking her eyes off the princess. Your Highness, I want to be very clear about what I am proposing. I am going to demonstrate the strength difference between our species by lifting you completely off the ground. With one hand, the laughter stopped. Princess Veleth stared down at the human scientist. Lifting me with one hand. That is correct, said Dr. Carter calmly. You weigh approximately 30 pounds in standard gravity due to your hollow bone structure and low muscle density. To a human adapted for 3 times your world's gravity, that is roughly equivalent to lifting a small bag of grain. The silence in the hall was complete. Princess Veloth looked around at her courtiers who were no longer laughing. The implications of what the human was saying began to sink in. "You are claiming," said the princess slowly, "that you could lift me as easily as I might lift a small object." "Not claiming," corrected Dr. Carter. "Offering to demonstrate. If you are willing to participate in this educational exercise." Princess Veloth straightened to her full 7-foot height. Her crystalline skin began to glow with inner light as she considered the proposal. Around the hall, other Zephyrians whispered among themselves in their musical language. "And this would be safe?" asked the princess. "Completely safe," assured Dr. Carter. "I have extensive training in handling delicate scientific equipment. I would treat you with the same care I would use for a priceless artifact." Commander Brooks stepped forward. "Your Highness, perhaps I should handle the demonstration. I have more experience with physical operations." Dr. Carter shook her head. "Thank you, Commander, but I think it would be more effective coming from me. After all, I am the scientist, not the soldier. If I can lift Her Highness easily, then it demonstrates that even non-combat humans possess capabilities that might surprise our Zephyrian friends." Princess Veloth nodded slowly. The challenge in her eyes was clear. She had been making jokes about human primitiveness for days. Now she had to decide if she was brave enough to experience that primitiveness directly. "Very well, Doctor," she said finally. "I accept your demonstration. Show me what human strength means." The princess gracefully floated down from her platform to stand on the main floor. Up close, she was even more impressive, tall and elegant, like a living work of art. But standing next to Dr. Carter, the size difference was not as dramatic as it had seemed from a distance. Dr. Carter looked at the princess with professional calm. "Are you ready, Your Highness?" Princess Veloth lifted her chin proudly. "I am ready, Doctor. Show my people what your primitive species can accomplish." The hall held its breath as Dr. Carter stepped forward. The next 3 days passed in a blur of tours and formal meetings. Princess Veloth seemed determined to show the humans every wonder of Zephyrian civilization. She led them through halls where sculptures floated in mid-air without any support. She showed them gardens where plants grew in impossible spirals, reaching toward artificial suns that hung in the sky like captured stars. Dr. Carter took notes on everything, but found herself growing frustrated. Every time she asked about the technology behind these marvels, Princess Veloth would give answers that sounded more like poetry than science. "We simply ask the energy to flow where we need it," the princess would say with that same musical laugh. "It is a matter of proper mental discipline and evolutionary advancement." The other Zephyrians seemed to find the humans endlessly amusing. They would whisper among themselves in their chiming language whenever the humans walked by. The translation devices could not pick up these quiet conversations, but the meaning was clear from their expressions. They thought humans were funny. Commander Brooks tried his best to remain professional, but Jake could see the tension building in his shoulders. Every time a Zephyrian made a comment about human crudeness or primitive development, Brooks would clench his fists slightly before forcing himself to relax. "Captain," Brooks said quietly as they walked through another impossible corridor, "are we sure diplomacy is working here? They don't seem to take us seriously at all." Jake nodded toward Ambassador Torres, who was deep in conversation with one of the Zephyrian officials. "Nicole knows what she's doing. Give it time." But even Ambassador Torres was starting to show signs of strain. The formal negotiations about trade agreements and mutual cooperation kept getting sidetracked by Zephyrian comments about human limitations. Every proposal the humans made was met with polite but condescending responses. Your cargo vessels must be quite large to carry supplies without gravity manipulation, Princess Veleth had said during one meeting. Like ancient beasts of burden, trudging across the void. How quaint. The princess seemed particularly fascinated by human technology, but not in a good way. When Commander Brooks demonstrated their portable computers and communication devices, she watched with the same expression someone might use while watching a clever pet perform tricks. "Remarkable," she said, after seeing a holographic display. "Your species has found such creative ways to work around your technological limitations. Brute force solutions to problems that more advanced civilizations solve with elegance." Dr. Carter finally spoke up during one of these demonstrations. "Your Highness, with respect, our technology serves our needs quite well. Human ships have crossed distances that would take Zephyrian vessels much longer to travel." Princess Veleth laughed like crystal bells ringing. "Of course, dear doctor, when you cannot manipulate space and time directly, you must simply push through it with massive engines and crude propulsion. We understand completely." The assembled Zephyrians found this hilarious. Their musical laughter filled the meeting chamber while the humans stood there trying to maintain diplomatic composure. On the fourth day, Princess Veleth announced that she would personally show them the crown jewel of Zephyrian achievement. She led them to a massive viewing chamber with walls made of pure, transparent crystal. Outside, they could see the Zephyrian homeworld hanging in space like a blue and silver marble. But it was not the planet that took their breath away. It was the cities. Entire metropolises floated in the sky above the planet's surface. Spires and towers that stretched for miles hung in the air without any visible support. Streams of light connected the floating cities like bridges made of pure energy. Ships moved between them not by flying but by simply stepping from one energy stream to another. "Behold," said Princess Veleth with obvious pride, "the result of millions of years of proper evolution. We learned to work with the fundamental forces of the universe instead of fighting against them like primitive species do." Jake stared at the floating cities and felt a mixture of awe and irritation. The technology was incredible, but the constant insults were wearing thin. "It's beautiful, Your Highness," he said carefully. "Your people have accomplished amazing things." "Yes, we have," agreed the princess. "And we did it all without the crude physical modifications your species seems to require. Look at you all so heavy and dense. Your bones must be incredibly thick to support such bulky frames. And those muscles. You look like you were designed for manual labor rather than intelligent thought." She walked around Commander Brooks as if examining an interesting specimen. "This one especially, so broad and thick. I imagine your species evolved from some sort of pack-carrying creature, always hauling heavy loads across your primitive world." The other Zephyrians tittered with amusement. Dr. Carter felt her face burning, but forced herself to stay calm. Ambassador Torres looked like she was trying very hard not to say something. "Diplomatic, I suppose," continued Princess Veleth, "that when a species cannot manipulate gravity, they must develop other compensations. Brute strength to move objects that we would simply float into place. How exhausting that must be." Commander Brooks spoke for the first time that day. His voice was very quiet and very controlled. "We manage, Your Highness." "Oh, I am sure you do," laughed the princess. "Primitive does not mean incapable after all. I am certain your species has found many creative ways to accomplish tasks despite your physical limitations." She gestured toward the floating cities. For example, we discovered long ago that fighting gravity was wasteful, so we learned to partner with it instead. Our cities float because we ask them to. Our ships travel by stepping between energy currents because we understood that force should flow naturally. Princess Veloth turned back to the humans with that same condescending smile. Your ships, on the other hand, must burn enormous amounts of fuel just to escape your planet's gravity well. Then they must carry massive engines and heavy shielding to protect their passengers during the crude process of pushing through space, like watching someone try to swim upstream instead of simply asking the river to carry them. The Zephyrian audience found this comparison delightful. Their musical laughter grew louder and more confident. Jake noticed that some of them were now pointing at the humans while they laughed. Dr. Carter had reached her limit. The scientist in her appreciated Zephyrian achievements, but the human in her was tired of being treated like a circus animal. She looked at Ambassador Torres, who gave her a tiny nod. "Your Highness," said Dr. Carter in her most polite voice, "your technology is certainly impressive, but perhaps you would be interested in learning about some of the advantages of human development as well." Princess Veloth raised one elegant eyebrow. "Oh, my dear doctor, what could your primitive species possibly teach us about advancement?" Dr. Carter smiled. It was not a diplomatic smile. "Well, for instance, you seem very interested in human physical development. Perhaps you would like a more direct demonstration of what our evolved strength actually means." The laughter stopped. Princess Veloth looked intrigued. "A demonstration? How wonderfully crude. Yes, I think that would be quite educational for all of us." Ambassador Torres stepped forward smoothly. "If your Highness is interested, we would be happy to arrange a proper demonstration with appropriate safety measures." "Safety measures?" laughed the princess. "How delightfully cautious. Very well. Let us see what your walking gravity wells can actually accomplish." Jake felt a cold knot forming in his stomach. This was either going to solve their diplomatic problems or create much bigger ones. The demonstration was set for the next day in the station's main assembly hall. Word spread quickly through the Zephyrian community. It seemed like everyone wanted to see the primitive humans show off their crude physical abilities. Princess Veloth could hardly contain her excitement. This was going to be the most entertaining thing to happen on the station in years.